if we stick and become rigid, we're going to have a lot more difficulty speaking to each other and understanding each other, because my generation can say, no, you got to do it this way. My generation probably would not have created a lot of the technology that we have today.
Yeah.
And yet it also helps us. I mean, it's like, okay, I think rigid thinking is where it's the kind of what's always been that way. You've got to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong.
Hey gals, welcome back to the Coach Her podcast. This is Abigail.
And I'm Terry.
And today we are going to be talking about cross-generational differences and all the things that relate to that. So let's just get right into the conversation. You brought up this topic.
I did.
So what were your initial thoughts when you were writing this down?
I'm not sure exactly why it came to mind. I know I've been looking at some of the different podcasts and stuff that I've seen on social media, and I think one of the things that might have fed into this is just how important I think it is for people of different generations to be in communication with each other.
Yeah.
To have that the dialogue that goes along with just getting to know people and understanding how people with from different generational groupings have different ways of looking at things and what does that mean for us as individuals? What are some of the difficulties of that, and what are some of the advantages of having those kind of interactions?
Yeah. Okay, so I have a lot of experience with this because I frequently hang out with my friends who are in their 60s, 40s, 30s, and 20s.
Okay.
So I have a lot of...
You have a cross-section of friends.
Yeah. And I love all of my different friendships, all differently because of what they bring to the table.
Okay.
And I don't know why I'm like this. I just feel kind of weird because I'm who has a friend who's 65 that they just go hang out with, but I do that because she's so amazing. I actually just saw her this past weekend and we talked for literally 3 hours, and I found that those relationships are so great because they give you different perspectives because they've already kind of lived through life, and they bring a lot to the table, and it's just really nice to talk to people who have kind of already walked the walk.
Well, and you have a unique or a different perspective than some people because you've grown up with different generations being involved fairly close. I mean, you've got grandparents on both sides. You've got aunts and uncles, and you live in an area where you've had that experience of just being, not just knowing that you have grandparents, but being involved in their lives and sharing back and forth. So, I mean, it makes sense that you would have friendships of different age groups.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem foreign to you.
For a good while, it kind of was. I know they progress naturally. I met them, the gal that I just hang out with and talk to, she's actually my teacher, and we really enjoyed talking about the same subjects in school. And because I was homeschooled and the classes were literally in one class it was just me, because yeah, that's just what happens when you're homeschooled. So the relationship just developed naturally. And then even with some of the other gals that I spent some time with, they were from church, and so it was more a one-on-one discipleship / coaching. And yeah, there were some things that I definitely had to get used to. I definitely threw out a lot of jokes that did not land because you guys don't have the same sense of humor as us youngins.
Okay, so that leads us into one of the things I wanted to talk about is what are the difficulties, because we can't really overcome difficulties unless we've identified what they are. So what are some of the difficulties? One of the things you said is different types of sense of humor.
That one's a big thing for me. I have such a dry sense of humor, and I've noticed that I can't really like express that around them just because they wouldn't understand. So yeah, like good communication is easy to understand. So I'm just not going to use that. I'm not going to express myself that way so I can connect with them. But then it leaves like parts of me that they don't know. And I think one of the things about cross generational relationships is that just because of that, because there's like there's a lack of understanding there just based off of like experience, like because humor is not a thing that it's not necessarily wrong to not understand, you just don't understand it because we're not around it. um it creates like barriers between like people. Like I don't feel like she would know all about me because there's parts of me that I can't express around her. And that's nothing that's against her, she's doing anything wrong. But to me it kind of feels like, I don't know how to explain, not necessarily bad, but almost like a little bit inauthentic because I'm like, I can't fully like show who I am here. Um, yeah, I think that there's like that's the negative part about like cross generational relationships, is just like one of those reasons. You can't just share absolutely everything.
Well, I think there's a similarity between, like you said, the humor and maybe even some of the language. I mean, you see some of the each generation has its own words that it uses to mean certain things. And the other generations, I mean, it's almost purposeful. It's like, okay, you want to have your own little, your own identity, and yet trying to communicate using those kind of buzzwords with other generations may not communicate the same thing.
Yeah. Like I don't know if this is like a bad word. I don't think it is, but it's fine. Forgive me if it is a bad word. Jit means like a young person who doesn't know anything. Like sometimes like I'll use that word and I'm like, I can't use that with you because you're just not.
It's not a word that's in my vocabulary.
Yeah, and so it would be like, it would be kind of, it'd be weird to like say it around you because like, and like for words that that I don't know. Yeah, that's one thing.
Well, and words and terminology that was used in my generation when my generation was your age, were used and are still used today. So it's more well known what those things meant. But when I was your age, my parents and grandparents wouldn't have understood when I said, if I said things. And it's just part of growing up. It's part of being in that late teen, early 20s kind of stage.
And like one thing about that, like, I think expanding on that is that there's different experiences that I have that like if I shared it with someone older than me, they wouldn't understand. And like there were some decisions that I'd make where it's like, why are you making that decision? It's like from their perspective, it doesn't seem like a wise one. Well, it's like you don't fully understand like my position or like all of the cards that I'm playing with because it's different. That's where I think the differences like come into play. It's like we live in a different time period. Like you were young decades ago and now I'm young today.
Well, and I think, I think you're right in that. But I think we can be sensitive to those differences. We don't have to, for instance, you've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old niece. Mm-hmm. Niece? No, cousins.
Yeah, cousins.
Oh,
yeah, cousins. Yeah.
And my guess is if you went over today, and now you wouldn't because the 4-year-old's sick, but if you went over to spend some time with them, you wouldn't talk to them like you talk to your peers. Mm-hmm. Because they're not going to understand some of the words you're saying either. So you talk to them in language that they're going to understand. So when we talk to somebody from another generation, we need to kind of talk to them in the language that they're going to understand if we want to communicate well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
I think another problem that happens a lot of times is kind of what I would call rigid thinking or rigid beliefs. Every generation has... it's like you go through a stage where it's like, okay, we're trying to figure out what does life expect from us, and what's the best way to do things. And I think every generation has a different spin on that. And then we kind of keep going in that direction. It's like, okay, this is how I learned how to do things, how to relate to people, how to, and then what happens is the next generation has different ones. And, each generation kind of has different ways of thinking. If we stick and become rigid, we're going to have a lot more difficulty speaking to each other and understanding each other, because my generation can say, no, you got to do it this way. My generation probably would not have created a lot of the technology that we have today.
Yeah.
And yet it also helps us. I mean, it's like, okay, I think rigid thinking is where it's the kind of what's always been that way. You've got to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong. And I think every generation has some things that they look at that way. I think that causes problems between generations. Another thing I would say that goes along with that is pridefulness. We end up having a sense of pride in what we know and how we know it. And then it kind of, in that sense, where we exaggerate what we know and how we know it. We exaggerate the value of that, and we can often, if we're not careful, minimize the value of other people's perspectives and what they bring to the table, what they've learned in their generation and their growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
No, I agree with all those. I do think one thing that I've noticed is like, and this really depends on also like the person, but I definitely think that generationally, like as groups, we can have sort of rigid thinking and expect something to we can expect something to be solved in our like paradigm and our perspective of the world, and we're like, this is how it's supposed to go, and not recognizing that there's so many other perspectives and that generations provide that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think going along with that is stereotypes. It's so easy to look at, and this is something you see on social media a lot. I hate boomers, or I hate millennials, or it's just like it's like, well, when I heard somebody one person wrote in and said they worked at a coffee shop and they just hate it when boomers come in because they know you don't know it's going to be anything bad. It's like, okay, so maybe they're not as familiar with using your coffee shop, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be, kind and respectful.
Yeah. This is one thing about this topic that I didn't understand, and maybe it's because I'm like in my own little bubble, but like people saying that they hate generations is like kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
Like, how do you hate a whole generation? Like what?
Or you I think a lot of times you treat individuals based on what you have the stereotype of the whole generation.
Okay, I understand that.
It's like, well, and that would be, like my generation saying, well, you don't know anything because you're just your generation. That wouldn't be fair.
Oh, wait. Okay, I'm kind of finding my one of my prejudices, I guess. One thing that I've been surprised at is like you and Grandpa like seeming so like open to like new ideas and whatnot, and I'm like, wait, they're older, like what? Like this is weird. Okay, so then I'm like, well, then what was my initial assumption?
Right.
It was they're older, so they should be stuck in their ways and only go by what, the status quo was a while back.
And there are a lot in that, we don't have to always agree with people in our generation. You don't have to agree with people in your generation all the time, because we're individuals above all. And just, judging people in any generation because of, well, that's, they're older, they should just be rigid in their thinking. And our experiences are different. Let's move on to what do we do about this? What are some of the benefits of communication in cross-generational situations?
Yeah, I would say some of the positives are you get a new perspective from someone who is in a different generation than you are. If you're someone who is a bit younger talking to someone who's a bit older, you'd get someone who's already walked life, and so you get to talk to them about that. And yeah, I just think overall the positive is a perspective. You get a new perspective on things, because one of the things that's nice is, like, with all like the world conflict going on right now, talking to someone who's older and who has gone through, maybe rumors of war or wars, like their experience with dealing with that.
Yeah, I think for people who are in the younger generations, there are some things that can be learned from talking to people in older generations. How many times it's like, I think I see people who are younger who are getting a lot more wound up about some of the stuff that's going on, and it's like, yeah, but the pendulum keeps going back and forth and back and forth, and you kind of get used to that. But I also think there's a value in intergenerational relationships because of, I mean, for the older person, we're not just feeding the younger generations. One of the things I think it does for older generations is it gives you a younger perspective on things. And it helps when you have people around you who are younger, it keeps you younger in some ways. And when you have those positive relationships, there's research all the time that comes out that shows the value of grandparents spending time with grandchildren and grandchildren spending time with the grandparents. And I think that's one of the beauties in intergenerational interactions.
Yeah. 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 It looks like the common denominator here is the perspective.
I think so. And I think that the biggest thing, if you want to have a healthy relationship with somebody from a different generation, is to come at it with curiosity and not some, curiosity and respect and value, and not some kind, not preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, this is the way it's going to be, because you're talking to individuals. It doesn't matter what their age is. They've got their own walk with life, and it's interesting to find out more about it.
Well, thank you gals so much for watching, and we really enjoy your input. And so let us know what your thoughts are on intergenerational friendships. We want to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching.